And that's, again, this is coming a lot from the work of Michael Newton, is that people's experience of that soul world and what they learn is that we're here to grow and expand and learn and develop as souls, not unlike going through school and, starting in the first grade and getting all the way to getting your master's degree in life and being a soul.
Right.
And we're here to learn maybe specific things, and there may be multiple lives. Just like if you were to, well, we all learn mathematics in school, but you just don't start with the crazy equations on the chalkboard or the whiteboard. You have to start in the first grade with 2 plus 2 equals 4. And then in the second grade, you start with your times tables, and then you move on to, in the next grade, to a long division, and then fractions. And then in high school, you're doing algebra and algebra 2 and calculus and trigonometry. And then you're moving into, finally, eventually getting your master's degree in mathematics. Then you're doing the crazy equations on the chalkboard. But it took
Right.
a lot of years.
Leo season's here, and if you've been craving the courage to show up and be truly seen, I made something for you. Safe to Be Seen is my new seasonal workbook filled with soul-centered prompts, mirror work, and grounding rituals to help you embody your light without fear. This isn't about performance, it's about presence, and you're ready. Download it now at my website, empoweredwithmelisahepner.org, or you can go to my link tree on my Instagram, and there is a link directly there. Emotionally unavailable. Well, welcome back. It's so good to see you. You were one of my all-time favorite guests. But okay, a couple things I want to start with. Today we're going to focus on your new book. So
Okay.
I want to start off with a very sincere apology that I have not read it yet, because I got sent about 4 around the same time and put a lot of pressure on myself. And then that's the fastest way for me to get paralyzed and not do shit. So I need you to understand I'm being sincere though, because it would hurt my feelings if we were in the reverse. So I
Yeah.
do care about your book, and I am going to read the book, but I just wanted to apologize because I don't want to be
Oh, that's
flippant about
that's
it.
perfectly all right. Because I know it's a bit much. Um, my 200 page book is 450 pages, so I know there's a lot there because I go. There's a lot of rabbit holes to go down, and I apparently went down all of them. So I know
Good. I like that. I'm excited to
yeah,
read it.
and it's really a book I wrote uh, for myself because these were the topics I was interested in, and specifically what we're talking about is past life regression and the past lives guidebook, because I wanted a book for myself out of my own curiosity, out of my own skepticism of, because a lot of this work, it's sort of like me and the X-Files. It's like I want to believe, and
Yes.
so I've
Yes.
kind of, over the course of my life, in terms of my own spiritual growth and learning about other cultures, and because growing up in the West, and specifically the Episcopal Church and the
Yes.
Baptist high school I went to in San Diego, California, that's very insulating.
Uh-huh.
And it was really, that was, 1970s, 1980s. And it was really the going to Santa Cruz, California, to go to school there in the 1990s or early 1990s when I went to school, but lived in Santa Cruz for 11 years or so. And, Silicon Valley being right there in San Jose and Mountain View and Santa Clara, San Francisco being right there about an hour and a half north. There's there was so much culture and different kind of um, things to learn about in
Yeah.
terms of the world, and it really opened up my worldview. And so there's festivals all the time, and here's this martial arts class, and here's this Zen meditation class, and here's this African dance class, and here's how learn to play some instruments from around the world. And it was so much going on, and opened up just the world to me, because before that there's no internet in the early 1990s, at least
Right.
you and I had access to.
Yeah, right.
And that really didn't come out till, I don't know, what, 96, 97, with my 14.4 modem. Takes
Right.
12 hours to
Dial up.
download a photo. Yeah.
And the
And,
only thing I knew how to do with that internet was chat rooms.
yeah. Well, that's all I had, because it took 12 hours to download a photo. And it was just, and then you get kicked off because a phone call comes in, and, it's like, then you got to start all over again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was really all just about chat rooms and typing in to, and, and so it was really your experience of the world is just you experiencing the world outside and
Mhm.
meeting people and discovering more about them. And I didn't know anything about reincarnation or let alone past life regression kind of work. And that opened my world to that because many cultures, probably with the exception of maybe America, and whatever that means for the last 250 years, doesn't have, or we don't have in terms of the American culture, we don't have any sort of understanding of reincarnation or past lives or why we may
Right.
even want to be doing this past lives over and over again. Why do we keep coming back? Our experience is just sort of if we have a soul and we do end up going to an afterlife, it's just this one and done. We have a life and we go to the afterlife. Well, many cultures, I don't want to say all of them, but many cultures for the last 10,000 years maybe have some experience or some philosophy or some theories around the soul returning again and again for learning and for growth. And there's been
Mhm.
many people over the last 60 years of in terms of modern times, let's say, of whether it's Michael Newton or Dolores Cannon or Brian Weiss, who have written about their experiences with clients. Both Brian Weiss is a psychiatrist. I just did a
Mhm.
workshop with him last summer. 82 years old, he's still out there
Wow.
doing the work.
Love
Michael
that.
Newton's passed on back, I think, 2011, but psychotherapist. And these are left brain analytical academics who kind of fell into this by accident, by helping
Yeah.
clients to regress to childhood in this life. They kept going. And so their left brain analytical academic minds just like, well, the only answer after some research and looking into it is like, this has to be real. And
Right.
that's what the book's about. It's like, I wanted to learn more about it. So the book yeah, it has a few stories. This isn't like Dolores Cannon or Michael Newton or even in Brian Weiss telling somebody's story or in multiple people's stories. This is more of like what's going on in the brain? What's the biology of this? What's some science around consciousness being non-local? I mean, it's not imprisoned within the skull of ours, but can move
Right.
around space, hence the remote viewing experiments that were done by the U.S. government and the Soviet Union back in, well, I, I say they're still probably doing it. If it was successful and they were getting real results, they didn't shut
Right.
down in the early 90s out of embarrassment. They just
Right.
changed the name of it and moved it to the offices across the hall.
Mhm.
They spent millions of dollars in decades since the early 1970s up until supposedly the 1990s researching remote viewing, meaning consciousness can move to different locations. And what they found is that consciousness could also move forward and backwards in time. And so, like in this realm, and that's the experimentation, although they did do some kind of moving way back in time, kind of remote viewing exercise, which I talk about in the book. And so, it isn't just this work isn't just regulated to the uh, new age bookstore or the spiritual bookstore.
Right.
Like real research has been done around this kind of work, including Michael Newton, who did decades worth of research before he released his book Journey of Souls. The first person he accidentally regressed back to that soul world, that life between lives when we're just spirit in spirit state before we come to earth. He accidentally regressed somebody back in 1969. And he wondered and that
That's
person did such
wild.
great healing that he's like, well, I wonder if other people can have this kind of experience and heal this in depth, this deeply. And so he started working with people, seeing if he could get other people into this state and create healing. And he developed this protocol. And then as he's working with people, this is 1970s, there's no internet, there's no cell phones, there's no texting, there's no WhatsApp. These people don't know each other, and yet they're having
Wow.
similar experiences of this soul world, of this life between lives. And so he goes through the 70s, he goes through the entirety of the 80s, and in 1992 releases. He worked with thousands of people, 365 days a year. He's working with thousands of people over the course of 2 decades, and they're all having similar experiences to each other. And so that's what he writes about in that first book. He does another decade's worth of research with people, thousands of people. And he writes his second book, which is even thicker than the first book. And it came out in 2001, 2002. He develops the Michael Newton Institute, bringing in other researchers, which is still around today. He's passed on, but they just released a book a couple years ago, and
Wow.
so, and again, a lot of those books from the Michael Newton Institute or Michael Newton himself is talking about somebody's specific experience. So
Right.
what I was more interested for myself, my own curiosity, and to a certain extent, like I said before, my own kind of skepticism about whether this is true or not was, well, how does consciousness and memory and time and the theories behind this reality of if is it a computer simulation or the multiverse or a holographic universe? How does that combine with the biology of the brain and the focus on the pineal gland and all the 30, 40,000 tiny little crystals in the pineal gland that have been discovered? And, putting all that together on top of the government research into remote viewing and consciousness being non-local, how does that all stack together? So by the end of the book, it's like, well, you know, while it seems odd and strange and rather implausible, it seems like this is the correct answer because there doesn't seem to be any, at least that I could see, any evidence to suggest this is just one and done.
Right.
That
Well,
lights out and once we stop breathing, and then you know our energy just goes back to the cosmos and we're done. I don't see any
right.
evidence, yet tons of evidence to suggest multiple lives.
And I guess, okay, so I didn't realize they're viewing the soul itself. I I it's making sense to me now, but I think I thought it was like if you were doing a past life regression that you're just talking about past lives, but it really sounds like it's talking about the soul itself and how far it's progressed through each
Yeah,
life.
that's exactly it. Yeah. And that's, again, this is coming a lot from the work of Michael Newton, is that people's experience of that soul world and what they learn is that we're here to grow and expand and learn and develop as souls, not unlike going through school and, starting in the first grade and getting all the way to getting your master's degree in life and being a soul.
Right.
And we're here to learn maybe specific things, and there may be multiple lives. Just like if you were to, well, we all learn mathematics in school, but you just don't start with the crazy equations on the chalkboard or the whiteboard. You have to start in the first grade with 2 plus 2 equals 4. And then in the second grade, you start with your times tables, and then you move on to, in the next grade, to a long division and then fractions. And then in high school, you're doing algebra and algebra 2 and calculus and trigonometry. And then you're moving into, finally eventually getting your master's degree in mathematics. Then you're doing the crazy equations on the chalkboard. But it took
Right.
a lot of years. And if you could look at each year, first grade, second grade, third grade, high school, if you look at each one of those, the 4 years of a bachelor's degree, another 2, 3, 4 years of a master's degree, let alone a PhD, if you look at each one of those years as a life, like, well, it took multiple lives to really
Right.
understand mathematics. Now replace the word mathematics with love or compassion
Mhm.
or joy or happiness or how to relieve trauma. And
Yeah.
yeah, it may take multiple lives. Maybe they're all kind of connected together, like math is connected together, or maybe they're just individual little segments of, okay, now it's time to learn love. Now that you've learned love, now how will you apply that to compassion? You know,
Oh, I like
um,
that.
and there may be a need to uh, look at it from different viewpoints. You know, okay, we've learned it. Okay, let's say wealth. I know these are broad subjects, but just for the examples of what we're talking about here, let's look at wealth. Well, would it be helpful to learn what it is to be super wealthy as well as live in poverty, let alone being on the edge of being middle class, living paycheck to paycheck, let alone, would it be helpful to understand wealth and abundance by not having wealth of abundance, as well as having super wealth of abundance, as well as just kind of being midland wealth and abundance, and learning from these different aspects, let alone relationships? And maybe you're connected with one specific person, your primary soulmate. Because we have
Mhm.
lots of soulmates, the soul family, the soul group that we seem to move along with from first grade to getting our master's degree. The same souls get put together in this class. And maybe there's one specific person, or maybe you're all switching the roles depending on what needs to be
Right.
learned and who needs to learn what. But maybe it doesn't go well in one life, just like, you're getting
No,
your
I have
bachelor's
questions
degree.
about that.
Yeah, I mean,
I have so many questions about
it
that.
doesn't go well? Do you have to take it
What
over
if?
again?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like, what are you learning? Because this is why I'm asking, and I know that it's been a long time since we've talked, so you probably don't remember half my story, but, um, so my parents died young, and then my grandma was kinda my primary caregiver anyway, but she died about ten years ago. So, I have not done any past life regression, but I have spoken with mediums who
Mm,
have all basically said the same thing about in terms of our soul contracts
yeah,
and them still being helpful on the other side because maybe they didn't necessarily fulfill their role here.
right.
Although I do believe some of the players were meant to go the exact route they went. But I'm wondering, I mean, cause like, my parents really fucked up. Like, I don't know if like, I don't believe that they accomplished what they were supposed to,
Mm,
except for their role in my life. Like, I
right.
know I was supposed to have the conflict. I know, whatever. So I'm wondering, A, can you see the soul contracts when you're doing the past life regression? And B, what is the understanding about what happens if they just, cause like, I cannot reconcile it gives me great peace to feel like my grandma just didn't make it, like,
Mm,
because she was a giant bitch, but she
mm,
also received so much hurt in this lifetime. I
yeah,
can totally forgive it now and understand it and have so much peace with the thought that, like, okay, this life just was a little too much for her, and as a person whose this life was almost too much for me, I can have so much compassion for that, and even my parents too, but they were easier to forgive for some reason. But,
yeah.
like, what is the understanding about what happens if like, there are people who in their own lives, it's sometimes maybe that's part of the plan, but I don't know that much. You know what I mean? So I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Well, and that's the thing is the kind of basic answer to your question is yes and no. I've worked with people, and when I do a past life regression, we always move up into that soul world. So I kind of follow the Michael Newton protocol and how he would run a session. And oftentimes these sessions are 3.5 hours because there's that much information you can gain from this. We can do shorter sessions like 90 minutes, but it's basically the same session. It's just
Yeah.
one's one scoop of ice cream, one's two scoops of ice cream. You just get more time to focus on either the past life and the soul life. But we always ask those questions in terms of going to the current life viewing room, as Michael Newton described it. Now, you may be allowed to understand the contract, or maybe you won't. Because if
Oh,
you understand more about what is expected of you or what you're here to learn, that may affect what you're here to learn and the timing of
okay.
it. Because it may take us 50 years to understand why your grandma was such a bitch.
Yeah.
And really, because it took at least 20 years to understand compassion. And it took another couple of years to kind of release the hurt and pain. And then as we grow, as we learn and develop, again, starting in first grade, as a little kid, we receive that hurt and pain of our parents passing away, and grandma just like her life has fallen apart because her kid died, and now she's got to take care of another kid. She was done with that. She retired, and now she's the primary caregiver, and the abuse she received. Now that may be due to uh, the learning and growth she needs to go through, which also affects the learning and growth you're supposed to go through. So there's hugely
Right.
complicated algorithm of who's learning what. Now, maybe she's just playing a role. Maybe this life everybody's focusing on, okay, let's help you out.
Okay. So that is a
Or
thing.
maybe it's like a big, huge rubber band ball of it's all kind of twisted together and linked together. But, you know, it's sort of like looking like a play, like a theater troupe, like your local theater troupe in your town, and there's 8, 9 actors in this theater troupe, and they're gonna say, "Okay, in January, we're going to do this play, and in this play all these characters they learn and grow together, and one of in the second act one of them passes away, one of them maybe even kills themselves, and how these uh, characters respond to that and learn and grow from that tragedy in the third act. So
Right.
by the end of the play there are these different people. Well, you're going to have a meeting and say, okay, here's the scripts, here's maybe there's somebody in charge, the director, here's who's going to play what role. We decided this play was written in the 1700s, but we decided we're going to make it in the 1970s because we got some great costumes in the back. And here's who's going to wear what hat, and here's what the house is going to look like, and the set. And you go through all that, and then you take a break in February, and then in March you do an entirely new play. And the play, even though this play was in the 70s, that the next play may be a Shakespearean play done in the 1600s, or a
Mhm.
Shakespearean play that you decide, just like uh, um, Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes did Romeo and Juliet in the 1990s, set in the 1990s. Let's change the time up, or something. And let's say I'm in that theater troupe, and I decide to be really dramatic in one scene, and I jump off the couch and I sprain my ankle because I land wrong and I roll my ankle. Well, now I'm on crutches for the rest of the play. And then we take a break in February, but then March we decide to do this new play, and it's a different time. It's all entirely different characters, entirely different storyline. Characters are going to learn something. All the characters are learning something different by the end of the third act. But I'm still on crutches, and I still
Yeah.
have a sprained ankle. It has nothing to do with the new play or anything. But I've just brought over this hurt and this pain and this healing that needs to happen into this next, uh, this next play, this next life, basically.
Yeah.
And so you can see, and that's not the greatest, an analogy in
No,
the
I
world.
I I got
But
that. Yeah, that does make perfect sense to me because I'm like, "Oh, so, I am a believer that we choose the experience." So, uh, maybe I guess the reason I'm so hesitant to, like, lean into them having chosen is because it's so sad to me
Mhm,
that they, like, an entire lifetime, which granted, for my parents, they didn't even make it to 40, so it wasn't that long for them, but, like, for for an entire lifetime to be spent in so much hurt and to never
mhm.
have gotten really anything that positive out of it,
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah,
it makes
and
sense to
again,
me
it's like
that they very
maybe
well could have signed up for that.
yeah, they may have signed up for that. They may have, signed that contract, and that's an interesting thing because what I often asked, and, everybody has their own experience of a past life and moving up into that spirit world, because 'cause you're gonna get to the end of that past life. And generally, just really quickly, just so people understand what a session is like, at least what the sessions I run, is we're going to focus on a specific past life. You can also do multiple past lives if that's, kind of a potpourri of different lives you may have experienced, and just to kind of see. But generally, people are focusing on something they want to heal, or maybe discover some insights. Of course, you can do this for fun. And you read Brian Weiss or Dolores Cannon, it's like, this sounds fascinating, but way to increase my spiritual awareness of myself. And of course, you can just do it for fun and discovery. But a lot of times people come to this because they are hurt. They've done the years of talk therapy and they
Mhm.
still hurt. They're still in pain. And while maybe they've resolved a lot of the issues of this current life, it's like, well, I just read Brian Weiss. I think this may have something to do with the past life. It feels familiar. It feels comfortable. And that's a lot of the way people find me, is now wanting to explore this side of themselves. And so we'll focus specifically, like, and we want a phrase like turning the TV to the right channel. You don't want to be
Yeah.
on HBO if the show you want to watch is on Netflix. I mean, back in the day, it used to be Channel 6, Channel 8, and Channel 10. And it's like, well, if you're on
Right.
Channel 10, but the show you want to watch is on Channel 8, you're not watching your show. And so we want to focus on which book of your life we want to focus on. It's usually a phrase like, go back to past life that is influencing all the anger I feel in this life. Or it could be something
Oh.
more, discovering your past, of go back to the past life that was my most spiritual life, or go back past life where I encountered my soulmate in a really
Mm,
romantic way or something else. So
yeah.
you can focus again. It's like turning the radio. Yeah, I'm using
Wow, I
only
didn't realize that.
analog of things that maybe people of a certain age will understand, but the younger generation maybe not get. But it's sort of like, if you go to Spotify playlists, there's a lot of playlists out there. Which you want to listen to the Beatles, you want to listen to the 1980s, you want to listen to country, you want to listen to classical. Well, you have to go to the right channel, the right playlist.
Mhm,
And so we're going to focus on that. Now, if somebody lived to be 90 years old in that past life, we can't go in even in 3 hour session. Of course, we can't go through every hour of that 90 years. And so what we're going to focus on is 4 or 5 significant, important events in that life that have to do with influencing the anger or have to do with being the most spiritual life or have to do with the soulmate, you know? And so we're going to go to 4 or 5 and we'll enter that past life, kind of determine where you are and what's going on and what's happening. And then I'll say, I'm going to count to 3. And on 3, you'll move to the next significant event, whether you're younger, older, the same age, and 3, be there. And you'll just jump to another
wow.
state, just like kind of again turning the channel or the radio dial and or jump down on the playlist. I mean, if you have the 1980s, you have 200 songs on this playlist. Okay, we'll just jump to another song, and you could do that. So we are going to get to the end of that life, though, because that's important. Those last thoughts, those last emotions, which may connect to this current life. It's like
Mm,
life easy or hard? Was life painful or joyful? It's like it was really painful. It's like, and I feel a lot of people were abusing me mentally and emotionally, even physically, and I really, have a hard time with family or relationships or money or okay, so that may
mm,
tie to what the person is experiencing. So we want to know those last emotions, those last thoughts, and then have
yeah,
that soul move out of the body. And again, any decisions you're making, are you vowing revenge? Or, you still feel hurt and pain or something else. So we want to know what those feelings are in the last moments. And as the soul moves out of the body, what is the soul experiencing? Souls that are going to move to the soul world, that life between lives. And that's where the healing happens. Healing happens in the soul world. You can recharge, you can reset, you can renew, you can create healing. Disconnect those negative cords from those past lives. So it kind of realigns and refocuses your current life. We find out more about any sort of soul contracts or even reunite with your soul family and like kind of reconnect with them. Notice who's playing what role in this life. Now that may be
yeah,
information you're allowed to know, or maybe no, it's best like the Masked Singer or whatever show is like, no, it's better not to know who's doing what, you know,
right.
and because of your own learning and growth. Now, you may be able to find out at that point whether your grandmother was here for your learning and growth or her learning and growth and your learning or just here for herself and you just have to be here to help her in some way. Um, or maybe not because that will influence your her and growth. But there's a kind of this aspect to these people's stories that there always seems to needs to be a villain in a really good story. You know, Star
Yeah,
Wars Star Wars without Darth Vader and the stormtroopers and Palpatine,
yeah.
You kinda need those people,
I mean, I
otherwise there's
can
no
certainly see how I wouldn't have gotten through all of the stages that I've been through in my life without
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I would
So, I mean, it makes
without
perfect
Darth
sense that
Vader
that could be very
yeah,
intentional.
yeah, without Darth Vader and Palpatine and the Emperor and all that, there is no Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo, let alone Rey and all the other people, Finn and all the other people. It's you kinda need that for the story to move forward, to find
Mhm.
that pressure because oftentimes, like the coal turning into the diamond, you need that pressure and that tension for the learning and the growth and the development. And that doesn't always have to be the case. You might be here for fun, you know.
Yeah.
You might be here to learn how to help other people, maybe through running a charity thing or being a talk therapist or a hypnotherapist or brain surgeon or heart surgeon or something, or maybe just a caregiver, or there's all sorts of different reasons for being here. You might be here on just R&R, rest and relaxation and having fun. and you meet
Mhm.
your soulmate, you travel the world together, You get on all those cruise ships where you get to live on the cruise ship, and that's where you live, and you just hang out in all these different ports of call and have fun. Or maybe this I always wanted to know what it'd be like to be on tour as a musician, or I always wanted to be a backup. I don't wanna be Beyonce, but I wanna be Beyonce's backup dancer. I think that'd
Yeah,
be really
yeah.
fun. I wonder what that'd be like. Alright. Well, there, have some fun. Why not?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
but,
do think joy, like, learning how to create my own joy is part of what I'm here for. Uh, but yeah, I think just understanding this as a philosophy has really, well, A, it solidified so much of my spiritual beliefs, but
yeah,
also the peace that I felt, like, because in believing in something, and also that it it does all have a place and it didn't happen for no reason, helps me every time I'm encountering because just because I'm, like, on the other side of where I used to be doesn't mean that shit doesn't happen anymore. It does,
sure.
and it's
Yeah,
stressful, but, like, it's so much easier to move through current day stressors feeling as if, like, okay, so I just gotta get on the other side of this stress and then we're back on. We're good. We're good. Like, it helps
yeah,
me continue down the path. I can feel when I'm being restricted. I can feel otherwise. And it's like, okay, we just gotta keep going, and that's that. Versus when I felt so hopeless in a mental
yeah,
health crisis where I just had no sense of direction at all because I was like, I've done everything I know to do. But I feel like the more I lean into all of these concepts, you learn even more things to do.
yeah, yeah. Well, and you also by having either experiences and you talked about talking to mediums and psychics, or there's past life readers, kind of Akashic record readers, and that's an extraordinary way to find this information. Um, this is different. What I do, you experience it. So I'm not going to be
Yeah.
doing the reading for you and pulling in this information. That's why it can be a bit longer because you're having the experience. Now it's just a memory.
Right.
You're not
Right.
time traveling. And just like I would ask you, tell me about work last month in that meeting, and the fourth quarter results or whatever. And you say, oh, okay, well, they got up, the accountants got up and they talked about, you tell me about the meeting and, what you all had for lunch. They brought in sushi or they brought in sandwiches or whatever. He'd have that experience, or tell me about lunch you had with your friend last week. Where'd you go? What'd you have? What did the place look like? Or tell me about high school. Did you do sports? Did you do music? You do theater? You smoke cigarettes behind the gym? Did you go to prom? Who'd you go with? What did you wear? Did you get a limousine? These are just memories. You're not going time traveling back to high school and getting stuck in high school. And just like I could ask you about, oh, tell me what your favorite teacher was in high school, your favorite class. And you say, oh, it was science. I love science. I was totally into biology. You had a great biology teacher. They were so in love with biology, and it really inspired me to want to become a scientist. Well, as you have that memory of high school, you also understand the entirety of your life. You have a brother and sister. You have a dog at home. You're focused on this class, sitting in class, learning about biology. But you also understand you have a mom and a dad and a brother and a sister and a dog and a cat. And you also play in a band on the weekends. You and your friends have a cover band that you play at other high school dances and things. You understand the entirety of your world, even though you may be focused specifically on a class in high school, your favorite class. And you can also, I could ask you about your earliest memory. Maybe you were 10 or 8 or 5 or 2 years old or 1 years old. Uh, all we're doing with past life regression is going back a little bit further to a memory. So sort of like
Yeah.
all that stuff I was asking you about work or lunch or high school or your earliest memory, that's swimming in the shallow end of the pool. All we're going to
Right.
do is swim to the deep end of the pool. It's the same pool. It's just now we're going to head over to the deep end safely and gently. And that's where having somebody guide you. You can do this work on your own. There's certainly lots of recordings on YouTube, maybe Spotify, I guess. You can find Brian Weiss past life regressions on YouTube. The thing with just doing it with a recording is It can be very generalized. Um,
Yeah.
and you kind of get, I don't know, somebody may get kind of stuck just because they're in this relaxed, dreamy state. And so it's hard to get the momentum to move forward, especially when you
Yeah.
get into that snow world. It feels so good. It feels so amazing and wonderful and light and free. And it's like sitting in a jacuzzi. You don't want to get out of jacuzzi. You're hanging out with your friends. You don't want to get out of jacuzzi. We need to get out of the jacuzzi. We need to go to the healing place. We need to go past life regression or the current life regression room, current life memory room or whatever. And focus on the soul contracts and things. We need to get out of the jacuzzi. And so that's where
Yeah.
somebody, like a past life regression therapist can be helpful if there's some walls or blocks or some hurt and some pain, some trauma. It's like, we were talking about before, if like you don't do it right, maybe you have to come back again, just like, you don't do fifth grade well, you have to repeat
Right.
fifth grade,
Gotta
or
repeat.
summer school, you have to get
Yeah.
a tutor, or you're in college and you're at university there taking the chemistry class and it doesn't go well. You're taking that chemistry class over again, maybe with a different teacher, maybe with different people, maybe at a different school, you know. But uh, just because you're living a life to learn and grow, you know, maybe it doesn't go well. Or again, maybe you have to look at it from different perspectives. Maybe if you're in a relationship with the opposite sex, maybe the next time you two have to switch, you know, and maybe it's at the same time period, maybe it's an entirely different time period. And just again, for learning and growth. And so it's what's nice about working with somebody like a guide or a past life regression therapist is that if something does come up, because one of the parts I talk about in the book is a story that was told to me when I was getting training past life regression. I did pretty extensive uh, intense training in hypnotherapy and past life regression. I went to Hypnotherapy Academy of America, and this is 500 hours. You
Oh
walk out
my
of there,
gosh.
100 hours. Yeah. So this isn't like a 20-hour course you do with videos on your own time. This is 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday. They're still around. They've been around for 40 years. And
Wow.
when I went there, this was pre-COVID. So you actually went to the classroom, and they're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. New Mexico really shut down everything during COVID. So they had to go online. I think they still do online. But, it's extraordinary training because it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and you learn about these techniques and the scientific validity behind them. Maybe you see a demonstration at the front of class, and then you break up into small groups and you work with each other. And so they
Wow.
start with clinical hypnotherapy. So you learn about how to help with somebody who is hurt and in pain, who went through great trauma. You learn how to deal with that. That's the first 6 weeks. And so you get your certification as a clinical hypnotherapist. So that's 300 hours right there. Then you learn medical hypnosis, that's pain control and healing acceleration and boosting your immune system. So it's focusing more on that aspect. That's another 100 hours, 2 weeks right there. Then you do past life. Once you learn the healing techniques of trauma and hurt and even physical issues, then you do to the more spiritual side. And you go again more into the deep end of the pool. And so, and again, you're working with each other. And so by the time you get out of there, you've done 50, 60 sessions because you're doing weekend work
Yeah.
and homework on, and study groups and all sorts of things.
You're like,
Excuse me.
family, come on in. Let
Yeah.
me practice.
Yeah. And you want to work with everybody because it's so exciting. It's so amazing. And the issue around one of the stories they were telling, one of the teachers during past life regression told, just kind of chit chatting before class started. Um, they were saying when they trained to be a hypnotherapist and do past life regression, they told their friend, "Hey, I'm doing this new thing. I'm really excited. I'm going to kind of pivot my life and do this more spiritual work." And he said, "Oh yeah, my ex-wife did past life regression. And she went up to go see somebody and I'd read Brian Weiss and I was very excited, just interested in seeing past lives. And she went to a past life that was more of a medieval, Middle Ages kind of time period. And they, she was kind of the head of the rebel alliance there in the village, in the community. And the authority figures, of course, didn't like that. They want their serfs and their peasants to remain peasants and serfs. And she had a very loud mouth. And so to make an example of her, they arrested her and threw her in jail. And this is Middle Ages jail. This is not a country club jail. And
Right.
they tortured her to death. So they tortured her to death to make an example of her to keep the rebellion at bay. So he tortured her to death, starved her to death, and she realized during this horrible past life regression she was having a memory of was that her husband in this current life was her jailer in that past life. Her husband in this life was the one torturing her to death and starving her to death in that past life. And they got divorced a month later, and because there's no healing, there's no resolution to this pattern that they meet. And now this relationship's done in this life. They may have to do this again. Okay, well, that didn't work. Now we got to try this
What
again.
in the hell?
Because it was just an experience of like, hey, let's just go have some fun. And the person didn't know how to create the healing. They weren't trained in dealing with trauma and the anger and the resentment of that somebody may be holding on to. Just like, if somebody went through something, you've just described your experience,
Yeah.
what you went through, you're carrying some hurt and some pain and some resentment
Mhm.
and some anger, maybe. Uh, well, that needs to be resolved. That needs to be released so you can move on. It's not to
Yes.
forgive other people so much. Some people need to be
Right.
in jail, and there needs to be, protective orders against people and stay, 100 miles away or whatever. That still needs to happen, but it means you get to release and let go for your own growth and development and your own nervous system. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there was no release or there's no resolution to that hurt and pain. And they got divorced. There's literally a divorce. Now I'm guessing there's other issues in that relationship, you know,
Sure. I mean,
but
obviously, if that
but
was the
the
pattern.
the final straw was, okay, well, I'm done with this guy. Look what he did to me in a past life. That explains
Yeah.
everything he's doing to me in this life, the way he talks to me, and and so
Yeah, especially if you're
there's
doing
no
it for
hope
fun
there.
and you don't understand, like, us
Yeah,
as a soul, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
and again, because there's no resolution, no healing. It was just a thing somebody probably learned really quick,
Mhm.
and there's an expo or conference or something I'm going to in, I don't know, March or something, about coming up to kind of, promote the book and have my own booth and talk to people and do my own workshop there. But one of the workshops there is somebody's going to certify you in an hour and a half to do past life regression. I don't know what certification means, but it's just like, that's not enough. I mean, because what if you run into, I mean, I did 100 hours, let alone all the continuing education stuff. I just went to Brian Weiss training last summer, 82 years old,
Yeah.
still doing it. And so one of my bucket list things to finally do training with Brian Weiss. And an hour and a half, you know, um, what if you run into somebody who's going through some deep hurt and pain? That's where you want to make sure the person you're working with understands the therapeutic aspect of this work.
Right.
Hey,
Well,
it can be just for fun, or it can be just for, yeah, I just want to experience a more spiritual side of me in a past life. That can be fine. There may be no issue to resolve or any hurt and pain to let go of. But if something comes in, like, yeah, when I was my most spiritual life, we were all thrown in prison, and I realized my
yeah.
parents were the judge and the jury. It's like, wow, what are you going to do with that? It's like, well,
Yeah.
shrug your shoulders, like, wow, that's intense. Sorry about that. Okay, see you later.
So if a person what are you I'm just asking your opinion on
Uh-huh.
this. If a person is coming in for the healing aspects, do you feel like they would get much better, like, outcomes if they come in with the understanding of, like, us as souls,
Mm.
consciousness, all of that stuff?
I think so, and I think they come to this work because there's an understanding. I guess in and of itself, people might just like go to a medium or a psychic because it's fun and let's play with the
Yeah,
Ouija
I know
board
people who
and
do
whatever,
that.
and I get that. And I'm sure there might be some aspect of people doing past life regressions. It's like, oh, that'd be fun. Let's just see what happens. And that's like, guys, that's legitimate and has value to it. But I think you're correct that, yeah, the more understanding you have And not they have to have a PhD in this work or anything or understand it
Right.
to that level. Because I wrote an entire book about it, and I have more questions than answers at this point.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And, but I think, the understanding of, yeah, we are here, just as the Michael Newton show. Hundreds of thousands of people probably at this point after 60 years of research, hundreds of thousands of people can have had this experience of we're here to learn and to grow in multiple lives, just like going from first grade to getting your master's degree. We're learning, we're
Mhm.
growing, we're developing, maybe in different subjects, maybe the same subject or same topic. And so I think understanding that allows you to have a deeper experience. I would agree with that. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And it,
so
again, doesn't
you
mean
are
you
also
have to have.
saying
uh,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say it doesn't mean you have to have a PhD or a master's degree in this, but it's
Sure,
just
but just a
like
general
an
understanding or
understanding of
belief.
there's more to it than what we see in this 3D world.
Yeah. Well, and so, okay, I think this just clicked too. Um, because I guess I kind of have been this whole time, like, not as much focused on the development of myself as a soul, but, um, the humanity,
Mhm. Yep.
like, once you develop, then you're helping, like, other people reach,
Sure.
more enlightenment or whatever. But so each each life, I'm taking with me the things that I learned and
Yep.
like,
That would
growth.
be the ideas. And again, this is like we're trying to figure out this 5D spiritual world with a 3D brain.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
but yeah, as you learn and grow, I mean, you can't do long division unless you understand 2 plus 2 equals 4. And if you take
Yeah.
2 away
I
from
just almost
4, you
felt
have
like we're
2.
starting all over every time,
It may be a new
Like
subject. It may be a new topic. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
okay, here you're, again, just like in school, you go through the different classes. It's like, okay, well, now let's say you're in university. Okay, now it's chemistry class. Now it's history class. Now it's English class. You're just learning different stuff. It's still you.
Yeah.
And the more you learn, the more that, the more advanced chemistry you're going to learn about or the deep and more in depth about history as you understand how researchers go about learning about history.
Mhm.
Your understanding, and so now you become a better historian as you learn more about the techniques of research or chemistry. You know, however you learned about it in junior high school is going to be different than you're learning about it at university.
Yeah.
You build upon it and you just get better and better at these subjects. So imagine doing that with love or compassion and now you're here. And while the focus may be more of a earth focus because you are here to focus on other people and the work they need to do as opposed to a more spiritual uh focus like maybe the Dalai Lama is doing or somebody else
Right.
that is meditating and doing qigong and the energy work and all this stuff. Maybe there are people who are here to meditate in caves for 20 years, and there's other people who need to run a charity that helps thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, not millions of people, and
Mhm.
focus their attention on this earthly, it's endless. I mean, what you could
Yeah.
potentially be here to learn and to grow. It's just, there's 31 flavors of ice cream at least, probably 403 flavors of ice cream at this point. And so
Right.
you have all these different experiences. It's ice cream, but just look at the different kinds of chocolate ice cream you can have nowadays. And so it's like with this, well, what kind of experience can you? Well, God, there's all sorts of experiences you could be having. And again, it may
Yeah.
just be you're here for your own rest and relaxation, and because Earth is so much fun, and you want to live in Kauai,
That's not my
in a little
experience,
hut
Craig.
by the
I'll tell you
beach.
that much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but this is like maybe it's like you get to live in a little hut on the beach in Kauai and surf, and that's your life, and then you bartend at night, and you're having a great time. And but
Yeah.
to somebody else is like, I need to focus on helping people, other earthlings here in this realm, this plane, or somebody else is like, I really need to focus on my spirituality. I'm going to go meditate on my own for a while or live in a small community without TV or Wi-Fi or anything, and so or maybe, I mean, look at a place like a big retreat center like Esalen or Omega Institute or something. I'm sure there's, retreat centers all over the world. And it's like, God, it'd be great but some of those people have to have jobs and deal with the bills and deal with the event
Mhm.
planning and deal with cancellations and deal with, you know, bacterial outbreak or, sick or whatever. It's like there's work to be done with running Esalen, even though it's an extraordinarily beautiful place with
Mhm.
wonderful people and people coming to take workshops and workshop teachers and trainers and the people who actually work there and run the kitchen. Somebody has to wash the dishes and somebody has
Mhm.
to mop the floor. So there's like work to be done, even at these spiritual places. So maybe that's your job to be the event coordinator at a spiritual place. It's very
Yeah.
grounded and rooted in taxes and paying the mortgage and, getting the plumbing redone on the hot spring or, there's all that nonsense that you got to do with a job, even
Yeah.
though from afar it's like, oh, it'd be so great to work at Esalen. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's a pain in the ass.
Maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah. But
So,
yeah, but maybe
okay,
it's the most awesome thing ever. So I don't know.
what would you say the biggest benefit is from having past life regression therapy?
I think the two biggest ones is one, more understanding your own growth and development as a soul. Now, you may not be able, for reasonings of your own growth and development in a specific life, to get the big picture, but you understand that there is something going on that is greater than
Mhm.
just, you know, going to work every day. At a
Yeah.
job you don't like. There's something about what your life is about right now that is helping you grow spiritually. You may not understand it all for reasons like just explained because it will interfere. Maybe you can are allowed to get a bigger sense and a bigger picture. Maybe that's a life connected to this one, a past life, maybe with other people that you can identify as your soul family. So there's the broader understanding that you're here for some reason, may just be for fun, but maybe for healing, maybe other people's healing. Maybe you're here to support somebody in your soul family. Now you're going to play the supporting role that encourages and is there for them. Um, but the other aspect of this, kind of the other part of this, is the deeper healing you can accomplish. Because again, just like the example of the theater troupe, you sprain the ankle and you still have that sprained ankle in the next life, the next play.
Right.
Okay, well, what if it's more of a if and I start off the book with somebody who held 20 years of chronic hip pain, even though she'd been to all the doctors, did all the MRIs and the X-rays and the physical therapy, and nothing. Over 20 years, helped with this hip pain. We did a past life regression and pulled out those cords of hurt and pain around her hip.
Wow.
Wow. And so that's kind of a more rare kind of thing. Uh, because the work I've experienced with people has been more on an emotional level, mindset
Yeah.
issue around love or money or something like that. So the to answer is just understanding the learning and growth that you're here to accomplish, either more broadly, or just, well, I'm here to learn and grow. I'm not sure why or what, or maybe you get a very detailed answer of, okay, checkpoints. So, here's what you're here to be learning. You're halfway done. And now here are the other things that need to be accomplished. Like, oh, great. Now I know how to move forward. I know the action steps I need to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's more of a broad thing. It's like, I'm not sure. The information is going to be dripped to me as I move through the rest of my life. But the other one is like the deep release you can have of the hurt and pain that you were experiencing in the past.
Mhm.
In this life, that's connected to something. Because people, again, uh, a good chunk of the people that work with me have done the talk therapy and done some healing and some resolution, but there's still that anger, that
Yeah.
resentment, hurt, or the pain, or the anxiety, or the fear. And I just don't know why. Again, they read Dolores Cannon, they read, uh, Brian Weiss, they read my book or something, and they think, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, this feels familiar, this feels comfortable. I need to do deeper healing work." And I think my intuition, your higher self, your subconscious mind's pointing me in the direction of past life regression. And that's where this
Yeah.
is different than just like going to somebody who can read for you, which is good.
Right.
If only you can get some great insights around that, some great discoveries. But, you know, imagine if you were doing the healing work yourself, how much more you can
Yeah.
accomplish in terms of the depth of that. Again, it's fun to
I
swim around
literally
the
can't imagine
yeah,
because, like, I feel so lucky to have stumbled across the people that I have, even though I know that it wasn't
yeah,
luck. But, like, still, like, I mean, I guess me taking the steps to start this show and get to meet people like you and, because it's all been
mm,
through my show.
yeah,
Um, like, I did the things I needed to do to call in the people I needed to call in, but, uh, just what little feedback I've gotten in that realm has helped me so much. I mean,
yeah,
of course, I had to, like, get to the place where I could receive that information, so I'm glad that I did, but it was still it was incredibly freeing. I don't
yeah,
know,
but
it was instant too, is the thing, like, because we were talking about my mom, and then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, but this applies to my grandma too. Like
yeah,
I have to
well,
be able to like understand and have compassion. And I see the way, because I think when you're spiritual too, you part of the growth and the evolution is getting to where you can be so intimately aware of your own stuff so that you can learn that compassion for yourself and
yeah,
then you see yourself in others and you go, I understand exactly why you did that. And
right,
so the more I'm able to just like forgive myself for being so human, the more I'm able to forgive them too. But that peace was instant. Cause like all the episodes up till that moment, I'm like, yeah, my grandma was a fucking narcissist, like all these things. And then now I'm still going to say she had lots of narcissistic traits because she did, but you know who else did? Me. So like, I can't hate you for that. Like I did
yeah.
too, and I don't hate myself.
Yeah, and you may not have been able to get to this understanding and this growth and this healing, and it hurt and it was unfair, but it also now you have leveled up in a way that if you didn't have that awful experience, then maybe you wouldn't have been able to do. Just reading about it in a book, maybe it's not going to be enough.
Right.
You actually have to have some sort of experience. And this is where, this can be a 10-hour conversation and still,
Right.
not have more questions than answers because there's a lot of rabbit holes to go down. And I know we're kind of bumping up against time here. So we're talking about 45-minute podcast is now heading towards an hour. And you see how it's so fascinating, so interesting. And that's why what should have been a 200-page book is 450 pages. It's just so fascinating
Yeah.
to all the little aspects of this work. Because you look at memory, well, what about memory and time? Well, memory and time, but what about consciousness? Well, what about consciousness? Because there is remote viewing. Well, if remote viewing, then is this just a computer it just like opens up more and more, you know, or you find more rabbit holes and it's extraordinary, it's fascinating. And I don't know how much we're able to understand with this 3D brain of ours, of
Right.
the 5D experience we're having as souls. It's sort of like pulling in all this digital information through this analog equipment. Has to make some adjustments and translations and things like that maybe
Right. You're
work and
using
don't
your
work.
own
But
filter to translate. So you
and then
gotta.
then you have your own
But I
filter of the
think too
subconscious
that
mind.
that's such a great, like, that really lends itself to what I was thinking too, is like, you've admitted to skepticism. Ah,
Yeah,
shit, I was a skeptic, like, there's all kinds of stuff that I've like, when the very first time someone mentioned it, my brain just rebuked the hell out of them. Versus now I'm like, yeah, so past lives are a thing, whereas before I'd have been
yeah,
like, you're weird. But, like, so I kinda say to anyone listening that's feeling resistant, because that's what our brain does, is like new information. Granted, this is not really new for anyone who's listened to any of the episodes on my show, because I've had several spiritual folk on here, but we have touched on things in a little different manner. So I would say, and I guess while I'm saying this, I'm going to ask your opinion on what I'm going to say. But
Well,
I would say we're okay with admitting that we don't know everything, and that we're using
uh-huh.
our filter to understand this world, but also, like, just take what resonates
Yeah.
and let it permeate, and get a good understanding of the things that do resonate for you, and then explore it.
Mhm.
Just
Yeah.
continue to explore. Like, if you are looking for profound healing, just take what part of this conversation you're okay with taking part of, and then explore that, and then let your brain expand a little bit to some new
Yeah.
information. It's okay if you're feeling super resistant to a lot of the things that we've talked about. If this is maybe this is your first episode that you're listening on my show, but, like, it's okay if not all of this lands for people, right? I mean, I think
Yeah,
just
yeah,
just
and there's a
keep
lot to it, yeah.
exploring.
I mean, look at the Michael Newton Institute. Uh, Michael Newton started in 1969. They're on 55 years of research, and they're still doing research. So
Yeah,
this isn't just you know you know, listen to an hour-long podcast and have it all figured out,
right.
kind of a situation. This is hardcore mathematics that, you know, you gotta start at 1st grade. 2 plus 2 equals 4, and then after some learning and growth, you can, be getting your master's degree in it, but even then, do you truly understand everything?
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
mm,
We're still
mm,
learning, we're still growing.
mhm.
Well, Craig, thanks so much for coming back. I've loved having you. Tell us again where we can
Yeah,
find
sure.
you.
Best way to find me, nowadays, 'cause this has always been the interest of my life, the more spiritual side of things. I started off my life in hypnotherapy, more on the clinical side of things.
Yeah, because we didn't talk
Um,
about this shit at all the last
no,
time you were here. I was, in
no,
fact, surprised, not shocked, but a little
right,
surprised when I got the email about this book. Not
yeah,
shocked, because I don't think that you can do the work that you were doing and not be woo woo and shit. And we touched on the woo a tiny bit, but I did even go back to my show notes to look at our last episode. I'm like, yeah, I knew we didn't talk about this shit.
yeah,
So anyway,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm such an
Well,
interrupter.
it's always been because the reason I went to hypnotherapy academy was because of the past life regression training. It was so extensive and so intensive. Uh, I wanted that, and I loved the way you had to build up to it
Yeah,
and learn the healing techniques, then learn past life regression. But I live I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona. The name of my hypnotherapy business is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I figured I'd work in Flagstaff, maybe have an office in Phoenix. But being so close to Sedona, that gets a lot of the attention in terms of the more spiritual side of things, of course. And so I just felt, well, I'll market myself or brand myself or work in the more clinical side of things while doing this work. I mean, it's on my website. Yeah, I don't, you know, put a gold star around it, but you can find past life regression on the Arizona Integrated Hypnotherapy website. If you're more interested in that aspect, I know that's a mouthful, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. But if you go to Google and Google Flagstaff hypnosis in the Google search, I'll come up on the maps there, and you just click on that and find me. But this since COVID and this ability to work with people around the country, around the world using Zoom, and this works
yeah,
great in Zoom because people feel comfortable and relaxed in their homes. In fact, the research shows that
yes.
Zoom sessions work as well as in person, and it may even work better than in person because people feel comfortable and relaxed in their homes. But I just worked with somebody in Switzerland with past life regression, and I got somebody next week in England I'm working with, and
That's
it's
so
just,
cool.
and been working not just on past life regression, but people in France and Lithuania, of all things, let alone Florida and New York and Washington and Colorado and all the places because of the how well it works. And really the only issue is time zones. Let's make sure we hook with the right time zones. But again, the kind of website that focuses more on this spiritual work is Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy. And so just look for Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy. That's me. and there's more information. Happy to talk with anybody over the phone or maybe a Zoom call or just email back and forth more about this work if you're interested. I love talking. As you can tell, I can take a half an hour podcast to an hour real easily. And so I know we got to get going, but it's it's an extraordinarily fun topic to talk about. And if you're interested, even
Yeah.
just more insights and discovery, not unlike somebody wanting to research their ancestry, that's fun. It can be quite a fun way to spend some time learning about your family and your heritage, but also you may find out some things about your family that's quite distressing, what's happened in the past. And so what are
Like
you
your
going to do with
husband
that?
was your jailer in a past
Yeah,
life.
exactly. So that's with this stuff. It's like, yeah, it's fun and can be quite exciting and an enjoyable way to spend some time. But if there's any aspect to that that's distressing, or you want to deal with some hurt and pain, and you feel your intuition is pointing you in this direction, I'm happy to talk with you about it. Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy. Oh, and the book. Actually, I have a copy right here. How about that? Past Lives Guidebook. That might be backwards and upside down, but at least that's what it looks like in. When you find it on Amazon. And again, it's more about the science and the spirituality of it, history of it. We start with Neanderthal burial sites, and if there's any
Wow.
indication of that they understood something about life after death. So we start with Neanderthal burial sites and go through different cultures, of course, Hinduism and Buddhism, and their understanding of reincarnation and past lives,
So
and
cool.
yeah, and then of course a lot of science around consciousness being non-local, therefore you could have remote viewing and time and consciousness and all sorts of stuff. It's fun. If you're interested in more science and the workings, the biology of the brain around past life regression, it's a fun book.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I've
Yeah,
loved
thank you. I
having you.
appreciate you letting me go on and on. It's been fun and, yeah, maybe we'll have to get together again
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yes, you're welcome anytime. All right, I'm gonna hit stop.
Thanks for coming to Emotionally Unavailable. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, and share. Emotionally